get from here to here requires me being someone different. Because if I were this person here, I wouldn't be here. I would be here. Who I am today is based on, or what I've accomplished today, or where I stand today is based on who I am today. Now, what I have to make a determination is, does my vision require me to be more? And, you know, 99.9% of the time, the answer to that's yes. So that becomes the journey, and there's a tension in that journey that has to be managed because things are going to happen from here to here externally, and
Well,
you
and if
have
you
to
want to
you
be,
have to be willing to think beyond that or above that.
and if
You've
I
got
were
to let your values guide that journey, not your emotions.
right, which is challenging too. I
Oh,
mean,
it's hard as hell.
yeah, I mean, it's like I want to say daily choice, but really it's a every second choice for you not to allow that to guide you or cause you to react. So,
Until those values, core values, become internalized, of course. Yeah, for sure. But there still needs to be a conscious, I constantly consciously remind myself to stay on track. Otherwise, if you don't, your subconscious habits that have been accumulated over the years will sort of take control of your body, if you will, and have you moving in a similar state that you've always moved, and have you behaving in a similar way that you've always behaved. And so if I'm in a similar mental state and my behavior remains pretty much the same, why would my conditions or circumstances change? Why
um,
would my life change? It's not. It's not. And
oh,
that's why it's so hard, because
yeah,
change is uncomfortable and it requires to realize a vision beyond where you are, requires you becoming someone else.
which means you have to give up something that you were, wouldn't you?
You have to give up everything that you were, I think.
Do
Now,
you?
I say everything. What I mean is, I'm not talking about maybe specific things, but levels of things, if that makes sense. Like if I have motivation or drive or grit, this requires more of that.
Does it so I had a conversation the other day and somebody an agent had said, if I need to do a more of some if I need to do more of something else, then that requires me to do less of something else or leverage, right? Because you only have so much time. So for somebody to say, "Oh, I want to be here," kind of like you were talking about with the gap, because we only have so much time, it's do I become more efficient or do I have to become somebody different and be less of something else?
Becoming more efficient probably is becoming somebody different.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
if you were more efficient, you would be different. It's just a matter of what it is, where it is you want to go. A lot of people haven't been challenged to think about that because I think we've overcomplicated vision or visioning because for some reason people want to think that creating a life vision is imagining everything that you could possibly have, and it's like, no, that's not it. It should be imagining who you need to be, because it's an internal journey, right? It's not an external. It's like, it's not when you have these things you're going to be happy and fulfilled,
Right.
right? I can't. Happiness and fulfillment are internal states. And
Agreed.
so it should be, when I become happy and fulfilled, I'll get everything that I want to get. Not when I get everything I want to get, I'll be happy and fulfilled. Big difference in mindset. And that's all. How you view that dictates your approach, for sure, on
Well, it
that journey.
dictates your choices, it dictates how you communicate, I mean, your state of being or your thoughts or I mean, to me, it controls so much. And until we get an understanding on how we're wired, how we think and what we think and how it affects everything that we do, I mean, it's a challenge for sure. I'm gonna switch gears only because I went back through the abundant office. And I remember seeing this page. It was the 25 things owners do to sabotage their offices. And one of the things it says is most real estate offices suffer from self-inflicted wounds. And it gets me thinking of agents also suffer from, self-inflicted wounds. So I wanted to touch on a couple of these because they're relevant to me. Perhaps they'll be relevant to somebody else. But one of the things in there is that they try to be all things to all agents. And I've had several conversations with team members and team leads who also feel the same. I had a team member that was hired on the team to develop other agents. This was outside of our organization. And the team lead had a hard time sharing the stage per se. So why is it that you feel like we struggle with letting people in to help us with leverage, and why we want to be all things to all people?
I think that response would probably be different for everybody who responded to that. I don't really attempt to get into the heads of other people. I just try to gain an understanding of where it is you want to go. And then once we realize where it is you want to go, we can make a determination as to who you need to be and how close to that you currently are. Then it's gut check time, right? Do you want to go on that journey or not? It falls back to my belief that the reason most businesses struggle, or the reason most people struggle, is due to inefficiency. And so you have to go, okay, what causes the inefficiency? And 9 times out of 10, it's misalignment. And so then you have to go, well, what causes misalignment? And again, 9 times out of 10, it's lack of clarity. And so what that means is it's not having a clear sense of direction or a clear sense of purpose for either your life or your business, or your position, or your relationship, or whatever it may be. We could put a lot of things uh, underneath that umbrella. So to me, it's an alignment issue a lot of times, and most of the time is what it is. And that inefficiency typically is the result of not having a system, or having a system that's not been properly aligned.
Or saying you have one and not following it.
Well, that's the equivalent to you not having one. I still think it's a result of lack of clarity. If I'm just out there willy-nilly accepting anybody and everybody because I think I could benefit from that, or because I think in some way, shape, or form I can help pretty much anybody with any need at all, that creates, dysfunction from the get-go. There's got to be an understanding of what it is, again, what it is we're attempting to accomplish from a mission and a vision standpoint, and then the types of people that are needed, that I need to be in relationship with in order to realize that vision and serve that mission. The only reason you should build an office or build a team or collaborate in general with anyone is because you think by doing so, you'll be able to achieve at higher levels than you could without them. Does that make sense? Same way with people, agreeing to join your office, or agreeing to become a member of your team, or agreeing to move in any kind of relationship with you. They should be doing it for the same reason, which is by partnering or building a relationship with you. I believe if we create the type of environment that we're talking about creating, then I will also be able to achieve things above and beyond what I would be able to achieve without you. To me, that's the healthiest way to begin, you know, any sort of collaboration with others. Building a team or collaborating with others is but one component of leverage. It's, to me, it's the final component of leverage. Before I can do that, I've got to go back up and I've got to leverage myself first through the way that I think. Because if I'm not thinking that way in a collaborative fashion, then the relationship's going to be nothing but dysfunctional. I promise. I'm going to think the way that I need to think. And again, it depends on what role we're talking about gaining leverage inside of. And then I've got to build specific systems set up to create an environment that allows everyone within the entity or the organization that we're talking about forming to get their needs and goals met. Well, it's a lot easier, for me as the leader, if I can go, here's the type of team I want to build, or here's the type of office I want to build, and here's the type of people that I need to be in relationship with that are going to allow me to build an office with this sort of a feel and with these sorts of results. And that's where you start to look at and you go, okay, it's not about trying to be all things to all agents. It's about trying to be all things to a very select niche of agents. And it's not as narrow as what it seems. If we're talking about real estate in general, there's three basic categories of agents. And as an owner of an office, you have to look at those three categories and go, I'm never going to be able to be all things to all three categories. Which category most aligns with the type of office I want to build and the type of key item of value that I'm willing and able to provide at a, world-class level?
Is that when you say the agents, is it the dependent, independent, and interdependent agent, or are you?
That's the type of relationship that's required. If you want to talk the specific category of agent, for lack of better terms, I call them mastery-based agents, which require interdependent relationships, which requires collaboration, right? So if I'm unwilling to do that, if I'm unwilling to collaborate, if I'm unwilling to develop, to nurture, then I shouldn't go anywhere near those types of agents because they're going to be miserable in my office. And even though they may join, they're not going to stay long. Okay.
Right.
Or they're going to look for every other reason to go at some point. So there's that type of agent. And the key item of value that most aligns with that type of agent is what we call complete business development, because these people want to be empowered, right? So it's how do I best do that? I do that by offering not crappy business development, world-class business development that allows them to master certain skill set that will allow them to achieve what it is they aspire to achieve in this role or in their role, that being realtor. So that's one category. The other categories are what I would call needs-based or welfare-based agents who are looking for subsidies. And again, there's nothing wrong with that model. It's a model that could work, but you're never going to attract a true mastery-based person with that model.
Right.
Just like you'd never attract a true welfare-based agent with complete business development. It might be somewhat attractive on the front end because they may not know what the hell they're doing and they need to learn. But once they reach that point, it's only going to be about what are you able to give me and what are you willing to give me? Typically in the form of leads. Whereas the mastery-based person says, I don't need you to give me a lead. I need you to teach me to generate leads so that anytime I need a lead, I can go get a lead. Where the welfare-based person says, yeah, I'm not really into that. I just prefer that you give me leads. Well, that's two different types of agents. And again, doesn't make one agent better than the other. But as the owner of an office, I've got to look at that and go, that's going to require two different key items of value. Those are two completely different mindsets. They require two completely different types of relationships. So am I going to water my office down by trying to be all things to both those categories? Or am I going to pick one and go, I'm going to knock it out of the park with that category? Because trust me, there's plenty of people in all three categories to get your needs met and then some. Right? It's not like there's a limited supply of any agent in any one of those categories. It's just a matter of alignment. Is our mission and vision aligned with our target agent, which is aligned with our key item of value? Because if anything in that equation is off, it's not going to happen for you. I'm sorry. It's just not. And then we go to the third category, which is what I'll call ignorance-based, right? And that requires an independent type of relationship. It's like, you don't really need me. You know what to do. Just do your own thing. And the independent agent is saying, you're dadgum right. I don't. I just need a place to hang my license and maybe have an office space. And other than that, I need you to leave me alone because I got it figured out. I know what I know, and that's all I need to know. There's a category for that.
Right.
And again, I know some really great ignorance-based people. I'm not I'm not casting shade or shadow on anybody that's ignorance-based or welfare-based. I happen to be a mastery-based person, and so I want to surround myself with mastery-based people because development is important to me. I love to develop, and so that's going to be my key item of value. And if I go try to sell that to a welfare-based or to an ignorance-based person, it's not going to fly. It's just not. It's going to be frustrating for both of us.
Right.
So why would you even entertain that? Just for the sake of saying, I recruited somebody or my office grew. What is that? That's not what we're after. I'm after, sustained and substantial profits,
Right.
not sporadic and minuscule profits. Any one of those niches will work, but you just have to make sure that your system, whatever system operationally you're following, is set up for your specific target agent. That's all. That's all it takes.
So much clarity in that conversation for me, but also helpful because there are many team leads that I've been meeting with outside of the organization over the last 4 or 5 months, and that is their biggest challenge is they haven't identified who their target agent is. I had this conversation, said, "Who's your target agent?" Because there was a lot of vocalizing frustrations with certain things, and I said, "Well, who's your target agent?" And they number one didn't know what that was nor really understood how to identify it. And I have to keep reminding myself that the quest that we are on is unlike any other, right? It's not what's loud out, it's not what the herd's following, it's not any of that. So on a consistent basis, I have to remind myself what our journey is, and then it's much different than all the others. And it's effectively communicating what that is too, that I find challenging at times.
To any conversation, whether it be a listing conversation or a buyer conversation or a recruiting conversation or a consulting conversation with one of our existing associates, without any pre-planned agenda, right? Other than I'm just trying to gain an understanding. And at the macro level, I'm trying to gain an understanding of where you are currently, where it is you want to go, and how passionate you are about getting there. Because if I can gain a sense around that, then we can start to begin to ask more nuanced questions that will allow us to uncover, are we dealing with someone here? And again, from our perspective, who's more mastery based, who's more welfare based, or who's more ignorance based, you know? And again, it's just through a series of questions. And what I love about asking questions is I don't really care what the response is, right? The response is what it is. I'm not trying to manipulate the response. I'm not trying to lead the response to a point where I go, "Oh, I got you," or anything like that. I'm naturally curious about where you are and why you're there, where you want to go and why you want to go there, and what in your past, if anything, can serve as an indicator as to the probability of you getting from where you are to where you say you want to go. If I can begin to understand those things, now I'm looking at it from a different perspective, and I can start to make a decision for the office as to, is this somebody whom would be the right person joining our office for the right reasons? It's a process, yeah, and it's too many people go into listing conversations or presentations and buyer presentations and recruiting presentations with a pre-planned agenda of get, and most of the time it's whatever it takes, just get. And I've subscribed to that early on. Were my numbers good as a result of that approach? Yes. Was my profitability good? Not really. Was my attrition rate good? Hell no. It was horrific. It was like a revolving door. And so that's where you look at and you go, oh, this is a nightmare. This is just dysfunction because if you've got people constantly coming in and exiting, coming in and exiting, coming in and exiting, then really any time that you've invested in that individual is time wasted.
Right.
I guess you can say, well, I got some short term income off that, relationship, but is that really what you're after? Again, I don't know if it is. Hey, there's your approach. That's a viable approach. It's not what I'm after, right? So it's not a viable approach for me. But again, you have to think about those things.
When you think about the agents and their business, right, with their sphere and with who they choose to work with, right? Their buyers and sellers, and even ones that they choose to work with from a transactional standpoint only, and they recognize on the front end this is not a good fit, but they're willing to lose just to get the number. I see that from a brokerage standpoint happening. I see it from a team lead standpoint where they're just adding because from the public perception, here's a team with 20, 40, 50, 60 people in a photo. And when you go and you look at the numbers, it's like, this is all wrong. Like our industry is all wrong when it comes to why do we get into real estate? Why do we start a team? Why do we start a brokerage? And honestly, it's chaos. It's chaos when you look at it. I mean, when you step outside of it, you look at it, you go, no wonder we're in the spotlight right now. Like, no wonder we're in the spotlight. And
Yeah.
until we get that right on the front end, David, I feel like we're going to continuously be facing these challenges because there's several, and I'm not even going to get into specific models because it's irrelevant. What's relevant is that anybody and everybody's being invited. I don't even have to say that. They're not even being invited, right? I invite, but a majority of them are just license are getting signed and they're getting added. And that's who's supposed to be serving the consumer at a high level. So your thoughts? I could go on all day
Well,
about that. I think we hit a pain point with me.
well, I think, what we've talked about for the last 20 minutes can all fall under the heading of self-inflicted wound.
Yeah.
If you want to bring it full circle. I mean, that's those are all self-inflicted wounds that you look up and again, a person like myself or yourself can tell somebody all day long how hot that stove is because it's a hot stove. Some people go, that's all I need. Just you tell me it's a hot stove, and I'll, buy into the fact that it's a hot stove. And it's a lot of people that go, you see, and they touch it. And some people, unfortunately, have to singe their entire arm off before they go, you know what, you're right.
That is
I don't
so
know. I try not to get into that. It's like, hey, it's to me, it's all about passion level. And so that's what I'm really trying to gauge is okay, if there's because we all have this internal urge in us, I think, to want to increase the quality of our lives. And I think that drives just about every decision that we make, especially change. If we're looking to make a change, really career change would definitely fall into this. If you ask most people on the surface level why you're doing it, it's because they perceive that doing so is going to increase the quality of their life. So I'm trying to gauge there now, what's the passion level behind that urge, right? Is this just a want? Is this a desire? Is this a passion? Or is this an obsession? Half of those will work, half of those will not work. If you just want it or desire it, chances of it happening for you, pretty slim. If you're passionate about it or obsessed with it, high probability. Doing what you need to do to become who you need to become to get whatever it is you say you want out of life.
and I don't even know the history of real estate licenses, right? Like I don't even know. I should go back and look at this, how it all started and why is it modeled the way that it is, right? Like you can go get every state's different, right? Some states require a broker, some states don't. We have always Well, for as long as I've been in the business, 19 years have had agency. So that's nothing new to us. It's more about how people were communicating or not communicating about it. And that's really the challenges you have. And really, it's in any business. You have your professionals, and then you have the people that just have a license. And so I go back and ask myself, as far as the entry point, is it just because it was 1099 that it's like come one, come all? Because that's how we're classified as 1099, or what the history is even of the business, of the industry. So I don't know. Do you know any of that?
I don't know. I mean, I've been licensed since mid 95, 1995. So, but real estate license go back way before that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know I know that the powers that be, whoever that is, if that's NAR, if that's your local board, if that's the state commission, whoever that is, it's probably a combination of all three, have really done a bad job of serving as, you know, gatekeepers for the industry. Because and I can only speak for Texas because I know the requirements in Texas to get and maintain a real estate license, and it's a joke. It's a complete joke. And and let's be honest, we're talking about helping someone facilitate one of, if not the largest financial transactions, of the year or their life. That's a big responsibility. And
Right.
just to think you can take, a couple of classes online and get a license and go, I'm your guy or I'm your gal. Well, that's scary. That's really scary. And we've got so many of those types of people in the industry, that get in it for the wrong reasons and don't take it seriously enough and don't do what it takes to be, a world-class professional. There's so many of those people in the industry that's the consensus then about the industry from, you know, an outsider's perspective. That's a big part of this lawsuit, to be honest with you. It's a joke to think that it was about collusion or if there was ever any collusion between the powers that be. That's just ludicrous. It boiled down to the fact that the general public thought the real estate agent made too much money given the value that the real estate agent provides.
And that too
I'm
is
not mad at them for that. I think they're right on there.
agreed.
95% of the time, they're correct.
Agreed, but I also think that's two different agents too. I think there's one agent that's fly by the seat of their pants, part-time, not really running it like a business. They have a license, they're answering the call, they're going out and opening doors, like there's that. And then there's the other group that I see is they're the professionals. They're the ones that are consistently educated, coached, developed, trained, consulted. Like there's that group. Well, now because of all of this, it's let's put them all in the same bundle. And I'm over here like, no, 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 no. Like the professional agent was always communicating, here's my value, here's how much I charge. I'm not even going to say a number because it's irrelevant. And then you had mediocre part-time agent, right? Kind of doing a good job. So you had two different levels, yet they were both getting paid the same. I can say it wasn't a collusion on the professional side. It was more of the other side. Sure, they were overpaid. Absolutely, they were. But because the way it was communicated was, we're going to share it, we're going to, but even then, it was always negotiable. We always communicated it that way. But the ones that
Yeah.
didn't were the ones that never go into the office or don't even know who their broker is. I'm just like, that's the
Well, even if they went into the office, chances are they're not going to get what's required in the form of development. I mean, now you're talking about, the 95-5 principle of agents. I'll also say, well, there's a 95-5 principle to offices, and most offices behave that way and were created, for the wrong reasons and approach a service-based industry in the wrong way. I would say that most offices, hell, most franchises are confused as to who their client really is, to be honest with you. The 95-5 principle is rampant throughout the industry. It's not just with agents. It's it's all the way up, as high as you want to go with that. So, but we always called it, this is the difference between what we called agent behavior and consultant behavior. It's like you don't want to be a real estate agent, you want to be a real estate consultant. And that's two different approaches. It's two different paths. And that's what we developed around was, hey, for those of you who are really serious about taking a consultative approach and separating yourself from the herd and being all you can be in your role, here we are, because that's how we think. And that's the value we provide. And so now what you have is sort of a niche office, because we were the only ones that were doing it within probably a 200-mile radius of us, and probably beyond that. That's just as far as I looked. And then what that's going to do is that's going to attract that type of an agent. And because we're the only office providing development at that level, we're your only option if you're really serious about it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's why we had a ton of agents.
Well, and when you think back last few years, market wise, right? Interest rates super low, like buyers were falling. I mean, deals were falling in people's laps. Let's be honest. And because I don't know if you consider they talk about the tide being high, tide being low, or whatever that analogy is. If you heard that, when the tide is it when the tide lowers, like you see everybody's naked or something like that. When the tide's high, like everybody's good. So when you look back over the last couple of years, most agents felt that their success, they didn't relate it to the market, right? It was, here's my business, here's what I'm doing. So they didn't feel as though, oh, I don't need the education, I don't need this, I don't need that. What I'm finding now that the market has shifted a little bit, that all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I need what you have, which is all, has been there all along. That it's moments like these that I tell, even our directors and our other directors in our other offices, I'm like, it's always been our time, right? But this is definitely our time to really communicate that to the people that don't have the support or don't have the training or don't have, all the things. So, and again, it's one specific agent too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always that way, right? I mean, I think you're always going to have agents that are serious about being all they can be in their role as a realtor, agents who are just okay with getting by and doing just enough, and agents who really don't take it seriously at all. I think that those are going to be in any market at any time. And so it's just a matter of identifying the people that your model is built for and attempting to move into a relationship with those people consistently and proactively. And as long as you do that, you're going to be fine. Again, regardless of whatever niche or model you want to choose, all three categories will work if the alignment is there. It just depends on who you are as the owner of an office, and what sort of environment you want to create.
which goes back to understanding the vision, understanding all.
It's all about clarity at that point, right? It's like, okay, why do most offices struggle? Because they lack clarity. And who's responsible for bringing clarity? The leader. So why do most offices struggle? Because they have a leader, an unclear leader.
So if you've never followed that, for someone that's never followed the process, what we're talking about, how does one restructure that? Let's say I have a team of 10 people and I'm all of a sudden going, this is no longer working.
Mhm.
How do you
Mhm.
start over?
What, in your opinion, would be the vision for it working at the levels you aspire it to work? How would you like it to work? So now we know where you are. We now know where it is you want this thing to go. Now we can start to analyze the gap or the tension in between and start to make some real headway towards what would be necessary to get from where you are to where you want to go. And then once we define those things, then it becomes a matter of how willing are you to do that? Number one, because that's the first thing we have to measure is we have to reassess willingness. Because if you're not willing to do what it takes, then there's no sense furthering the conversation. If you go, I'm willing, I really want this. Now I've got to gauge your level of willingness. Is it a want, desire, passion, or obsession? And then once we've done that, and I conclude that, yeah, okay, it's non-negotiable for you. You're on the side of passion and obsession. And I've found, some history in your past that can identify that you're one that has been passionate about something before and has done what it takes to get there. Because if they've never had that experience, if they've never really come through the other side of adversity, or they've never been, punched and gotten back up and continued to fight, it's not going to happen with you. It's not going to happen with your office. And you're both just kidding yourselves. And that's not me being cynical. That's just me being a realist based on a ton of experience of taking chances on people like that, because it's never worked. I've never had it work ever. So it's a matter of gaining that understanding. Now that I sense that there's a true willingness there and that you're really passionate, now we gauge ability. It's how able are you? Because that's where I can start to see where, through collaboration with me, we can develop the skills that need to be developed and instill the knowledge that needs to be instilled in order for you to become the person you need to be to realize that sort of a vision. And again, that's a collaborative effort. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but all I'm saying is I'm willing to go on that journey with people who are serious about going on that journey. And I'm unwilling to go on that journey with people who are indifferent about going on that journey. To me, that's what separates me from most other real estate office owners, is that no. When I say we only invite the right people for the right reasons, I really mean that. I'm not trying to pad my numbers. I'm not trying to grow the office head count or anything like that. I'm trying to create an environment, a very specific environment that is conducive to mastery-based people only. Does that not mean a welfare-based agent or an ignorance-based agent will get in there and or stay in there? No, not at all. Like I said, there's some great people that are both welfare-based and ignorance-based. Really great people. And there were people in my office that fit those descriptions. As long as you're not operating, even though you're one of those types of agents, as long as you're not operating with a negative, unproductive attitude that begins to become contagious to others, I love you, man. You can hang out. You can hang out with me as long as you want to. How much time am I going to invest with you on your business? Probably not much. Honestly, probably not much.
Did you communicate that? Did you find yourself
Oh,
communicating?
absolutely. Oh, everybody in my office knew that. 100%. 100%.
Love that.
But I had serious people. Majority of my people were serious and highly productive as a result. And it's a beautiful thing when you see that collaboration in motion and the effects that being niche focused can have. It's mind-boggling. So
Great reminder, being niche focused. I mean, because we've talked for years about right agent, right reason. I've coached with you since 2017. Like it's something we've talked about, but to really remind ourselves that it's a niche. It's not that it gives me a different sense of an understanding for it, but it's almost like you're specializing in that, looking for that, attracting that.
Oh,
So
I think so. Yeah. 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 And again, any one of those categories of agents will work as long as the office and the operational systems within that office are set up to add value to that type of agent.
So the
But
ones that weren't mastery based that you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave you alone," how often did you communicate with them?
oh, if I saw them in a hall, I mean, we'd always talk and stuff, but it's just like they're not going to be in any accountability meeting. They're not going to be in any mastermind meeting. They're not going to be in any training session. They're not going to. I'm not going to be investing time consulting with them, and that's a big part of our. Now, look, do they have daily challenges that need to be overcome? Yeah, and if we run across a challenge or an issue that they have that we address in class, because again, it's self-infliction most of the time, right? It's like, look, if you just follow the system is set up to prevent you from making some of the mistakes that you're making. And since you're not following the system, you're making those mistakes or experiencing these challenges. There'd be a little reminder of that,
Okay.
of if you just come to class, we talk about this kind of stuff.
I'm sure it wasn't that subtle.
So yeah, and I'm not going to train anybody one on one, and I'm not going to solve anybody's problems. I'm not going to take ownership of any agent's problems when they come in. The first thing, if you have an issue or a challenge or a problem, and you go, "Hey, I have a problem," I go, "What is it?" And you go, "Blah blah 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 blah," whatever it is. My first question back to you is, "What do you think you should do?" I'm not immediately going to go, oh well, let me help you with that. Here, let me solve that for you. Let me take ownership of that. It's like, nah. What what do you think you should do before I render an opinion? What do you think you should do? And if they go, I don't know, I go, then get out and come back when you know. So it's a matter of what do you think we should do, and the reason I love that question is because 9 times out of 10, when they tell me what they think they should do, I go, exactly. Just go do it, man. And they're just looking for validation, right? Or if they go, well, I think I should do this, and I go, and if I'm thinking to myself, that's way off, then I'll go, share with me why you think that.